Welcome to the Weekend Market Deep Dive for May 24, 2026 from Finance and Forex Recap. This week, we examine 20 U.S. companies across 4 market cap tiers plus 8 IPO candidates. Let's begin with mega-cap names. Now into mega-cap companies, those valued above $200 billion. This week's picks are Cost, IBM, QCOM, Walmart, and MRK. Up next, Costco Wholesale Corporation, ticker COST, from the consumer defensive sector. The stock closed the week at $1,028.24, down 1.2% over the past 5 trading days. Trading volume came in at 1.1 times its average. Recent news on the stock: Costco stock split rumors explode as Cost smashes $1,000 milestone again, via bar chart. Revenue for the trailing 12 months stands at $263.83 billion, up 8.7% year-over-year. Net income came in at $7.73 billion, up 10.2% from the prior year. Earnings per share trailing 12 months, $19.23 per share. The price-to-earnings ratio is 53.5. Total market value, roughly $456.18 billion. Next earnings report is expected on May 28. Costco Wholesale Corporation's scale means even a 1% move shifts billions in market value, often dragging the major indices with it. Now turning to International Business Machines Corporation, ticker IBM, in technology. The stock closed the week at $253.84, up 16.2% over the past 5 trading days. Trading volume came in at 2.9 times its average. Recent news on the stock: International Business Machines, IBM, is up 15.8% after announcing $2 billion Anduril quantum chip foundry partnership. Via Simply Walsent, revenue for the trailing 12 months stands at $63.77 billion, up 6.7% year-over-year. Net income came in at $10.73 billion, up 49.1% from the prior year. Earnings per share trailing 12 months, $11.3 per share. The price-to-earnings ratio is 22.5. Total market value, roughly $238.58 billion. Next earnings report is expected on July 22. At this size, International Business Machines Corporation is a barometer for the broader market. Institutional flows here ripple through the rest of the index. Moving on to QCOM Incorporated, QCOM, a technology name. The stock closed the week at $238.16, up 19% over the past 5 trading days. Trading volume came in at 1.7 times its average. Recent news on the stock: Qualcomm, QCOM, shares skyrocket, what you need to know via Stock Story. Revenue for the trailing 12 months stands at $45.27 billion, up 12.1% year-over-year. Net income came in at $11.66 billion, up 12.1% from the prior year. Earnings per share trailing 12 months, $9.29 per share. The price-to-earnings ratio is 25.6. Total market value, roughly $251.02 billion. Next earnings report is expected on July 29. QCOM Incorporated sits in benchmark territory. Index funds and large allocators hold this name regardless of weekly noise. Next is Walmart Inc., ticker Walmart, in the consumer defensive space. The stock closed the week at $120.27, down 9.2% over the past 5 trading days. Trading volume came in at 1.6 times its average. Behind this move, Freedom Broker upgraded the stock to hold from sell. Revenue for the trailing 12 months stands at $692.1 billion, up 4.7% year-over-year. Net income came in at $22.23 billion, up 51.9% from the prior year. Earnings per share trailing 12 months, $2.84 per share. The price-to-earnings ratio is 42.4. Total market value, roughly $958.67 billion. Next earnings report is expected on August 20. When Walmart Inc. moves meaningfully, sector ETFs and the broader index usually move with it. That is the privilege and the burden of megacap status. From the healthcare sector, Merck & Co., Inc., ticker MRK. The stock closed the week at $122.41, up 7.9% over the past 5 trading days. Trading volume came in at 1.5 times its average. Recent news on the stock: Merck MRK, Phase 3 TROFUSE-005 trial for endometrial cancer meets primary endpoints, via Insider Monkey. Revenue for the trailing 12 months stands at $65.27 billion, up 1.2% year-over-year. Net income came in at $8.94 billion, up 1.8% from the prior year. Earnings per share trailing 12 months, $3.55 per share. The price-to-earnings ratio is 34.5. Total market value, roughly $302.33 billion. Next earnings report is expected on August 4. As a household name, Merck & Co., Inc. attracts attention from both retail and institutional flows. Direction here is rarely accidental. Now into large-cap companies, those valued between $10 billion and $200 billion. This week's picks are FUTU, HPQ, NTAP, DELL, and ZS. Up next, FUTU Holdings Limited, ticker FUTU, from the financial services sector. The stock closed the week at $89.76, down 36.6% over the past 5 trading days. Trading volume came in at 23.3 times its average. Behind this move, JP Morgan downgraded the stock to neutral from overweight. Revenue for the trailing 12 months stands at $21.09 billion, up 67.8% year-over-year. Net income came in at $11.34 billion, up 107.9% from the prior year. Earnings per share trailing 12 months, $10.24 per share. The price-to-earnings ratio is 8.8. Total market value, roughly $12.58 billion. Next earnings report is expected on May 28. At large-cap scale, FUTU Holdings Limited's next move is usually decided by execution and earnings guidance, not by sentiment alone. Now turning to HP Inc., ticker HPQ in technology. The stock closed the week at $25.24, up 21.5% over the past 5 trading days. Trading volume came in at 2.6 times its average. Recent news on the stock: is HPQ still attractive after recent 27% monthly share price jump? Via Simply Walcent, revenue for the trailing 12 months stands at $55.09 billion, up 3.9% year-over-year. Net income came in at $2.28 billion, down 6.4% from the prior year. Earnings per share trailing 12 months, $2.64 per share. The price-to-earnings ratio is 9.6. Total market value, roughly $23.17 billion. Next earnings report is expected on May 27. HP Inc. has the cash flow and balance sheet to weather sector rotations better than its smaller peers. Moving on to NetApp Inc., NTAP, a technology name. The stock closed the week at $139.36, up 16.2% over the past 5 trading days. Trading volume came in at 2.8 times its average. Recent news on the stock: a look at NetApp, NTAP, valuation after a sharp share price jump and AI infrastructure momentum, via Simply Walcent. Revenue for the trailing 12 months stands at $6.62 billion, up 2.7% year-over-year. Net income came in at $1.17 billion, up 1% from the prior year. Earnings per share trailing 12 months, $5.96 per share. The price-to-earnings ratio is 23.4. Total market value, roughly $27.6 billion. Next earnings report is expected on May 28. Established large caps like NetApp, Inc. tend to re-rate on guidance changes rather than headlines. The next earnings call is the one that matters. Next is DELL Technologies Inc., ticker DELL, in the technology space. The stock closed the week at $295.19, up 19.1% over the past 5 trading days. Trading volume came in at 1.9 times its average. Recent news on the stock: assessing DELL Technologies, DELL valuation after AI infrastructure launches and rating upgrades, via simply Walsent. Revenue for the trailing 12 months stands at $104.53 billion, up 11.3% year-over-year. Net income came in at $4.81 billion, up 21.9% from the prior year. Earnings per share trailing 12 months, $8.68 per share. The price-to-earnings ratio is 34. Total market value, roughly $191.75 billion. Next earnings report is expected on May 28. Watch how DELL Technologies Inc. handles its mix of growth investment and capital return. That balance defines the large-cap thesis here. From the technology sector, Zscaler, Inc., ticker ZS. The stock closed the week at $182.37, up 18.7% over the past 5 trading days. Trading volume came in at 1.3 times its average. Behind this move, B. Riley Securities upgraded the stock to buy from neutral. Revenue for the trailing 12 months stands at $2.93 billion, up 24.5% year-over-year. Net income came in at -$57.8 million, down 98.4% from the prior year. Earnings per share trailing 12 months, a loss of $0.44 per share. Price-to-earnings ratio is not applicable as the company is currently unprofitable. Total market value, roughly $29.32 billion. Next earnings report is expected on May 26. Zscaler, Inc. sits in the part of the market where dividend reliability and modest growth often matter more than the weekly tape. Now into mid-cap companies, those valued between $2 billion and $10 billion. This week's picks are PATH, DXYZ, RGTI, VNET, and TE. Up next, UiPath Inc., ticker PATH from the technology sector. The stock closed the week at $10.93, up 13% over the past 5 trading days. Trading volume came in at 1.2 times its average. Recent news on the stock: UiPath PATH, Deloitte expand collaboration to integrate test cloud into Ascend platform via Insider Monkey. Revenue for the trailing 12 months stands at $1.48 billion, up 11.4% year-over-year. Net income came in at $282.3 million, up 206.5% from the prior year. Earnings per share trailing 12 months, $0.52 per share. The price-to-earnings ratio is 21. Total market value, roughly $5.69 billion. Next earnings report is expected on May 28. Mid-caps like UiPath Inc. have proven their model but still have room to compound. The next leg depends on execution holding up. Now turning to Destiny Tech 100 Inc., ticker DXYZ in financial services. The stock closed the week at $66.64, up 46.4% over the past 5 trading days. Trading volume came in at 3 times its average. Recent news on the stock: DXYZ, VCX stocks catch IPO fever, traders chase SpaceX, OpenAI and Anthropic for valuations rivaling Tesla, Meta via StockTwits. Trailing 12-month revenue has not been reported in available filings. Earnings per share trailing 12 months, $3.54 per share. The price-to-earnings ratio is 18.8. Total market value, roughly $2.01 billion. At mid-cap size, Destiny Tech 100 Inc. is large enough for institutional ownership but small enough to surprise on either side. Moving on to RGTI Computing, Inc., RGTI, a technology name. The stock closed the week at $26.42, up 37.1% over the past 5 trading days. Trading volume came in at 6.1 times its average. Recent news on the stock: RGTI Computing RGTI soars 19.9% on $100 MGOVT funding via Insider Monkey. Revenue for the trailing 12 months stands at $7.6 million, down 34.6% year-over-year. Net income came in at -$212.8 million, down 203% from the prior year. Earnings per share trailing 12 months, a loss of $0.89 per share. Price-to-earnings ratio is not applicable as the company is currently unprofitable. Total market value, roughly $8.78 billion. Last earnings reported on May 11. RGTI Computing, Inc. occupies the part of the market where strong quarters can drive sharp re-ratings. Watch the next print closely. Next is VNET Group, Inc., ticker VNET, in the technology space. The stock closed the week at $9.54, down 8.7% over the past 5 trading days. Trading volume came in at 1.6 times its average. No specific company catalyst this week. The move is more consistent with broader sector or market context. Revenue for the trailing 12 months stands at $9.95 billion. Net income came in at $-256.8 million, down 243.5% from the prior year. Earnings per share trailing 12 months, a loss of $0.14 per share. Price-to-earnings ratio is not applicable as the company is currently unprofitable. Total market value, roughly $2.72 billion. Next earnings report is expected on May 26. Mid-cap names like VNET Group, Inc., are sometimes acquisition targets when larger players consolidate the sector. From the industrials sector, T1 Energy Inc., ticker TE. The stock closed the week at $8.08, up 41% over the past 5 trading days. Trading volume came in at 2.9 times its average. Recent news on the stock: Roth Capital reiterates T1 Energy TE rating after recent debate via Insider Monkey. Revenue for the trailing 12 months stands at $879.5 million. Net income came in at $-324.2 million. Earnings per share trailing 12 months, a loss of $1.87 per share. Price-to-earnings ratio is not applicable as the company is currently unprofitable. Total market value, roughly $2.26 billion. Last earnings reported on May 12. The risk-reward here is wider than large caps. T1 Energy Inc. can move significantly on news that a mega cap would shake off. Now into small cap companies, those valued between $300 million and $2 billion. This week's picks are KSS, SMWB, HLIT, GENI, and SPCE. Up next, Kohl's Corporation, ticker KSS, from the consumer cyclical sector. The stock closed the week at $13.06, up 9.5% over the past 5 trading days. Trading volume came in at 1 times its average. Recent news on the stock: insights into Kohl's, KSS, Q1, Wall Street projections for key metrics, via Zacks. Revenue for the trailing 12 months stands at $14.06 billion, down 5.5% year-over-year. Net income came in at $272 million, up 40% from the prior year. Earnings per share trailing 12 months, $2.38 per share. The price-to-earnings ratio is 5.5. Total market value, roughly $1.47 billion. Next earnings report is expected on May 28. Small caps like Kohl's Corporation trade on news, sentiment, and volume. Single-day moves do not always reflect the underlying business. Now turning to SimilarWeb Limited, ticker SMWB, in technology. The stock closed the week at $4.13, up 34.5% over the past 5 trading days. Trading volume came in at 1.3 times its average. No specific company catalyst this week. The move is more consistent with broader sector or market context. Revenue for the trailing 12 months stands at $282.6 million, up 13.1% year-over-year. Net income came in at $-32.9 million, down 187.5% from the prior year. Earnings per share trailing 12 months, a loss of $0.35 per share. Price-to-earnings ratio is not applicable as the company is currently unprofitable. Total market value, roughly $361.8 million. Last earnings reported on May 13. Liquidity is thinner at this size. Volume in SimilarWeb Limited is worth watching as a signal alongside the price action. Moving on to Harmonic Inc., HLIT, a technology name. The stock closed the week at $15.2, up 13.9% over the past 5 trading days. Trading volume came in at 7.8 times its average. No specific company catalyst this week. The move is more consistent with broader sector or market context. Revenue for the trailing 12 months stands at $397.3 million, up 4.4% year-over-year. Net income came in at $8.5 million. Earnings per share trailing 12 months, $0.08 per share. The price-to-earnings ratio is 190. Total market value, roughly $1.65 billion. Next earnings report is expected on July 27. Harmonic Inc.'s next earnings carries outsized weight. Small caps in this range often re-rate sharply on a single quarterly result. Next is Genius Sports Limited, ticker GENI, in the communication services space. The stock closed the week at $5.35, up 28.6% over the past 5 trading days. Trading volume came in at 1.5 times its average. Recent news on the stock. Biometric ad research puts Genius Sports Moment Engine in investor focus. Via Simply Walsent, revenue for the trailing 12 months stands at $669.5 million, up 31% year-over-year. Net income came in at -$158.9 million, down 77% from the prior year. Earnings per share trailing 12 months, a loss of $0.62 per share. Price-to-earnings ratio is not applicable as the company is currently unprofitable. Total market value, roughly $1.43 billion. Next earnings report is expected on August 5. Volatility is part of the territory here. Genius Sports Limited can move 5 to 10% on routine news. From the industrials sector, Virgin Galactic Holdings, Inc., ticker SPCE. The stock closed the week at $3.24, up 12.5% over the past 5 trading days. Trading volume came in at 4.8 times its average. No specific company catalyst this week. The move is more consistent with broader sector or market context. Revenue for the trailing 12 months stands at $1.6 million, down 80.4% year-over-year. Net income came in at -$290.7 million, up 22.5% from the prior year. Earnings per share trailing 12 months, a loss of $3.87 per share. Price-to-earnings ratio is not applicable as the company is currently unprofitable. Total market value, roughly $338.4 million. Next earnings report is expected on August 5. Watch institutional flows in Virgin Galactic Holdings, Inc. Small caps often turn when larger investors begin to take a position. Now turning to the IPO calendar. First, companies that recently began trading. A general note before we go through them. New listings often show high price volatility in their opening weeks, and insider lockup expirations can affect future supply. Everything here is informational only, not a buy recommendation. Recent IPO, Cerebras Systems Inc. CBRS, ticker CBRS, began trading on May 11. Recent IPO, BUDA Juice Inc. BUDA, ticker BUDA, began trading on May 21. Recent IPO, GMR Solutions Inc. GMRS, ticker GMRS, began trading on May 13. Recent IPO, Optimi Health Corp. OPTH, OPTHF, ticker OPTH, began trading on May 19. Finally, looking ahead, companies expected to debut soon. Pre-listing companies have no public trading history, and the pricing ranges and dates that follow come from S1 filings, which can change before listing day. Upcoming IPO, Pharmaceutical Resource Technology, Inc., expected on an exchange yet to be confirmed. Expected to list in coming weeks. Upcoming IPO, Next Bridge Hydrocarbons, Inc., expected on an exchange yet to be confirmed. Expected to list in coming weeks. Upcoming IPO, ARC Group Securities Acquisition I, expected on an exchange yet to be confirmed. Expected to list in coming weeks. Upcoming IPO, Gameverse Interactiv Corp., expected on an exchange yet to be confirmed. Expected to list in coming weeks. That wraps up this weekend's market deep dive. Thanks for watching. This recap is informational only and not financial advice. All numbers come from public SEC filings and Yahoo Finance. Always do your own research before making any investment decision. See you next weekend.